Hello, everyone, again. Thank you for tuning in to our 10-minute Bible lesson. We really appreciate that. Now, uh, today we're going to be talking about the prophet Isaiah. Maybe you've heard of the prophet Isaiah, and we're going to be talking about what Isaiah saw. Because all Isaiah saw something that was an awesome sight. In fact, I would just say it was probably the most awesome sight that anyone could ever see. What in the world could that be that he saw? Well, let's read about it in Isaiah chapter 6, verse 1. So it says, "In the year that King Uzziah died, I saw the Lord." What did he see? He said, "I saw the Lord sitting on a throne, high and lifted up, and the train of his robe filled the temple." So what was it that he saw? He saw the Lord up on his throne. Now, what throne would that be, do you think? Well, I would just say it would be a throne that is above all other thrones. In fact, you could say that it was the ultimate throne. In fact, what else does it say that he saw? Well, it says that he saw all of this in the same year that King Uzziah died. Now, that's kind of a strange thing to say, to compare those two. Now, Uzziah was, you might say, one of the last of the good kings of the children of Judea. And I'm sure that Isaiah was probably close to his king. And I thought it was interesting, but in the same year that his king died is the year that he saw the Lord upon the throne. So you have his king that was on the throne that died, and in the same year God allowed him to see a vision of himself upon the throne. Now just think about that a minute. Now there's two more things that he mentions in this scene that's pretty important. And one of them is that the Lord's throne is high and lifted up. Imagine that. That shouldn't surprise us, that the creator of all the universe, that his throne is a high place. That is to say, it's lifted up very high. Now, what else did he see in this? Well, it says this, that he saw the train of the Lord's robe. Now think about that. I never thought a lot about that. God on his throne has a robe. And it's a magnificent robe. In fact, the train of it fills the whole temple. It must have been an awesome sight. Well, what else does it say? Let's look in verse number 2, Isaiah 6:2, and see what else. And it says, "And above it stood seraphim. Each one had 6 wings. With 2 he covered his face, with 2 he covered his feet, and with 2 he flew." Now these are special creatures. Man, I don't think I've ever seen a creature like that before. These are flying creatures. These are unusual creatures, and they're flying above God's throne. So that's kind of an interesting, and not only that, it tells us that they have 6 wings. Of course, 2 of them they use to fly, but 2 of them they cover their feet, and 2 of them they cover their face. Let's look and see what else it says in verse 3. It says, "And one cried to the other and said, Holy, holy, holy is the Lord of hosts. The whole earth is full of his glory." Wow, so these creatures are communicating to each other. And what is it that they're talking about? They're talking about how great God is. They're talking about how holy God is. In fact, they say he's holy, holy, holy. What else are they commenting about? They're talking about God's glory. And God's glory is absolutely magnificent. In fact, they're saying in this verse that the whole earth is full of the glory of God. It's too bad that those of us that live down here, somehow we can't take time to smell the roses and to see the beauty and the magnificence of God's creation, because it tells of his glory. What else does it say in this verse? Some more things in verse 4. It says this, it said, "And the post of the door were shaken by the voice of him who cried out, and the house was filled with smoke." Wow, I mean, this is a vision that it's just amazing. So he sees God on his throne. He sees these these special creatures that are giving glory to God, and as he sees all of this, the post, the very post in heaven began to shake. And not only that, but it says that the area of the temple was filled with smoke. Now that must have been really something, because I think this is just my opinion, the smoke filling the temple may have been what's known as in the Bible as God's Shekinah glory. Now, on certain special occasions in the tabernacle and in the temple, that happened where the tabernacle and the temple was just filled with God's holy presence and smoke. And it was such an awesome time that the priest that ministered in there, they had to leave. So what a privilege it was to be able to see that. Now, what do you suppose that was Isaiah's? How did Isaiah react to all of this? Now, how would you react to all of that? I mean, let's just read it in verse 5, and it'll tell us what it said. What he says. He says, "So I said, woe is me, for I am undone, because I am a man of unclean lips, and I dwell in the midst of a people of unclean lips, for my eyes have seen the King, the Lord of hosts." Now, the word "the Lord" is Jehovah, and the word "host" means army. So it's God and the God of angel armies. He sees all of this. And so his reaction is this, and here's one of God's great prophets, the prophet Isaiah. Yet when he's in God's presence, how did he feel? Well, it tells us he was undone. And he tells us that he felt unclean. What does that mean? Here's what I think. I'm just going to take a stab at it. I think being undone means the fact that all of his strength was just kind of loosened from him, and he just felt like I don't know, maybe just felt like he had no strength at all within him. He was just undone, and you might just say unraveled, so to speak. And not only that, but it tells about him being unclean. And he said he lived, and he confessed that he lived among people that were unclean. Now, to be in the very presence of God and to see God on his throne would undo anyone. It would make all of us feel kind of strange and help us to realize the vast difference between us that are sinful people and God who's not sinful. He's holy, he's righteous, he's great, he's awesome. It would be a humbling thing. What a vision that Isaiah saw. And you know what? God inspired Isaiah to record that for us so we could read about it and just think about it, how awesome God is. It's humbling indeed, I would say. Now then, here's the thing. We just kind of think that only happened. That's only going to happen to Isaiah. But I don't know if that's true or not. I kind of think that all of us are going to at one time appear before God's throne. Doesn't the Bible teach us that? I think that it does, and that's going to be a humbling experience. And what's going to happen before God's throne? Well, we're going to have to give account of our life down here. So it's quite a thing to think about. And so, but we really appreciate Isaiah sharing this with us and telling us about God and what this vision that he saw. Now, we're going to be looking at some more passages later on in a week or so in Isaiah. We'll see some of the other things that he tells us. It's a great book. In fact, I think you'll see that as we kind of do some more lessons in it. But we want to tell you thank you so much for joining us today for our little 10-minute Bible lesson. Hope you have a really good week this week.